Mr. Mayor, could you tell us a little bit about how it was and when it was that Mr. Massa approached you for this?
Well, some people on his behalf, the consulting company, contacted us, asked us if we would be willing or take a look at the crime reduction programs, the emergency preparedness programs that he had put into effect, and the plans that he had. So we started this review about 4 months ago. We met with them, went over them in detail, made some recommendations based on the things on paper in New York, and then that's what led to, coming here to see what's been put in place and then what the plans are for the future.
What degree of involvement did you have with the plan itself and the new techniques that Mr. Massa is advocating for?
Just reviewing them and making some recommendations on how to improve them. They were pretty well along, and also they are very good plans. So we made some recommendations, but most of it was really excellent.
Now, there's one thing about the plan that really caught my attention, which I think that it's very interesting, and it's the creation of a federal agency that is something similar, if I'm not mistaken, it's something similar to the FBI
That's exactly
in the United States. Now, how would you implement that in Argentina?
Well, the interesting part of it is there are two parts to it, really. It's creating a lot more local control by giving the mayors control of the police, which is what I had in New York.
Correct.
What the mayor of Chicago has, what the mayors have in a lot of parts of the world where they've had a lot of effect in reducing crime. But then it's also not only creating more local control, but then creating an overall federal agency like the Federal Bureau of Investigation. When you think about it, you need both. You need to deal with crime on a local level, get all the resources applied on a local level that understand the community the best, and then you need a national agency that has the ability to interrelate with other countries. You have a growing drug problem.
Correct.
That's a crime you can't deal with on your own. Murder, robbery, kidnapping, you can deal with that here locally, and it's probably best and most effectively dealt with by a local police department. But drug dealing is coming from somewhere else, and it's going somewhere else. So you need to have interreaction between countries, interreaction with Colombia, interreaction with Ecuador, interreaction with Bolivia, interreaction with Mexico, with the United States, with Canada. So that's why a federal agency is really important.
Mr. Mayor, don't you think it's also important to attack the problem of corruption in the police departments? Because as you probably know, there's a lot of corruption.
I pointed that out today, and I was very surprised at the tremendous reaction. That there's no question, just from that reaction, that I get a sense of how people feel the corruption problem is important, and they're right. You can't reduce crime significantly, and you can't maintain those reductions if you don't deal with the corruption problem. That's critical to making sure that these efforts work. After all, a corrupt police department isn't really doing its job, and it doesn't have the confidence of the public, which is very, very important in reducing crime. You have to gain the confidence of the people.
Correct. Are you acquainted with crime statistics in Argentina?
I have a fair idea of the crime statistics in Argentina, yes. Not the way I am in the United States or Mexico, where I've done years and years of work, but the crime statistics in Argentina are troubling. Crime is going up in a lot of places. Your involvement in the drug movement is getting greater and greater. The country is being used as a transit point for narcotics much more. That usually means crime is just going to go up further unless you start to deal with it at this stage before it gets much worse.
Now, yesterday you spoke about universal techniques that could be applied in any country in order to fight crime. Now, as you know, Argentina, every country has a collective ideology, and in Argentina, there are some things that may in the United States they may work, but in Argentina may be harder to apply. So, when it comes to measures such as creating a DNA database for criminals,
right?
What kind of criminals are we talking about?
Well, if you think about it, using cameras,
right?
What do cameras do? They identify people.
Right.
What does DNA do? It identifies people, except it does it very accurately. The thing you should realize about DNA, very, very often it clears people of crimes. We started introducing DNA in the United States 15, 20 years ago. Since then, hundreds and hundreds of people have been found not guilty, innocent, let out of prison, because the DNA proved their innocence in a way that nothing else does. So DNA is a great protection for making sure that your criminal prosecutions are accurate, that you have the right person. And I think when people start to realize that, they start feeling a lot differently about it.
The reason why I'm asking this is because it took a long time for Congress to pass a recent bill that was very controversial. It was passed in the end, but it was to create a DNA database for sex offenders. So if that was very hard to pass, I can imagine how hard it's going to be.
Well, it was hard to pass many of these things in the United States too. It takes a while for people to get to understand it, for people to understand its beneficial aspects in clearing the innocent. If you have a DNA database for sexual offenders, why not have a database for all people who violate and are convicted of violating serious laws? Shouldn't there be a DNA database of people who engage in kidnapping, robbery, drug trafficking, and these serious crimes? So if you see how it works with one, you usually deal with it with another. When it was first introduced in the US, there were these same concerns. And then when people saw how many innocent people were freed as a result of DNA, they began to realize how important it is. As they saw how many people were identified during September 11th, basically the only way we could really identify most people was by using DNA. When you look at these countries where there have been mass killings, like in Serbia and places like that, DNA has been like a savior for them.
How do you see Latin America politically these days?
Well, Latin America is as complicated as America, as the United States of America.
No, but I mean about there's been a rise of populist leaders, and some countries have gone to the left. So
there have been a rise of a lot of centrist leaders too. You look at Colombia, you see what's been done there. You look at Mexico, you see what's been done there. So there are a lot of different examples of the directions in which countries are going.
And do you think that a plan like the plan that Mr. Massa has unveiled is going to be easy to apply here?
You know, that's common to any ideology. I mean, there's no responsible ideology that wants to see a lot of crime, whether it's left or right or in between. So I don't see that as a particularly ideological thing. It's a sensible thing. People can't enjoy their rights if they're the victim of a crime. Or put another way, having the right to have some degree of safety is probably one of the most important rights. If you don't have that right, you can't exercise your other rights. I think most people realize that.
Final question. What are your views on some government leaders who try to perpetuate in power?
Personally, I served 2 terms as mayor of New York City. I thought that was the right thing to do. The reality is 2 terms, 1 term, 3 terms, it depends on the country. Like Mexico is 1 term, the United States is 2 terms, some other countries are 3 terms, but there should be limits on people in executive power. The whole nature of a democracy is that power doesn't reside in one institution or one person for too long.
Correct.
Right? Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. That's a very famous political saying from a great English thinker. So I think that's true.
Are you done with politics?
You're never done with politics.